Last Wednesday and Friday in class we talked about the allocation of resources in the case of pandemic, so this is just a review. 6 major issues that come up when if a pandemic were to occur would be where the resources would go, according to allocation, prioritization, restrictions on liberty and government powers, what the government can tell us to do and what they can put restrictions on, roles, obligations of healthcare workers and their employees, telling what they can, if they need to leave their work, or making sure that they stay there and help out. International commerce, immigration, watching who comes into the country in case of pandemic because you don't want it to be spreading, so they govern who comes in and who leaves. Confidentiality, if they should have to tell or not if they would get the disease, and the planning process of how to be prepared if we're prepared enough. Values that are part of the planning process: reasonable, evidence-based, making sure that the facts are true so your process is correct. Open and transparent, making sure it is open to the public and the public's part of the decisions. Inclusive, making sure you include everyone in the decision. Responsive, that the response will be correct to the problem. And accountable. Values to guide ethical decisions, according to the Toronto document. Individual liberty, protection of the public from harm, proportionality, making sure that the response is proportional because you don't want to use up too many resources if you don't need it, or you want to make sure you're using enough resources to fix the problem. Duty to provide care and privacy, making if someone, say, has the disease, that they need to actually tell or not and what's required of them. Reciprocity, say when someone waves, it's really strange if they don't wave back, so our doctors are providing the care, and in case of pandemic, should we give them vaccines first or not, since they're providing their time and putting themselves at risk. Equity, trust, solidarity, and stewardship. The WHO's list of 5 procedural values. Some of them are the same as the Toronto document, like equity, liberty, and reciprocity, but there's also utility and solidarity. The allocation of the limited medical resources. You should consider the quality of life, because if someone gets the disease and you give them the vaccine, if they're not going to recover fully from it, you need to decide if they should have that or if you should give it to someone who would recover. And the urgency of need, if they're going to die soon, you need to decide if you're going to give it to someone who is on the verge of death or if you need to give it to someone who's healthy and still has a chance. And the duration of the benefit, how long they will benefit from it, if it's going to be long-lasting or if it will just be a short time and they'll need another one. The amount of resources required for successful treatment. If one person needs 2 vaccines to survive and one person needs 1 vaccine, then you need to decide if you're going to give the person who needs 2, if you'll just give 2 other people who need 1. And suggested things not to consider would be ability to pay, because not everyone has the financial resources to get a vaccine, because it would probably be highly expensive. And deciding if that is something that should determine whether you live or die. And then age, if an older person needed a vaccine and a younger person needed a vaccine, should age really be a factor? Just because they're old, should they really just die? Or should, just because they're young, do they still have a long life? Or you never know. And social worth, just because someone's the president, does that make them any better than anyone else? Does it put one person more important than someone else? Or is everyone equal? Patient contribution to illness, there's a picture of alcohol and the consequences it can have in your body. Because, for example, if someone needed a liver transplant and they had been consuming alcohol and they had damaged their liver themselves, should they get a transplant, or should someone who just had it naturally occur get the transplant? I personally would say that the person who had it naturally occur would. Would social worth play a role in emergency allocation of resources? We considered politicians, doctors, healthcare workers, military, police, firefighters, electricians, because politicians, they're in charge and we need to have some kind of government and control in place. Doctors are the ones, doctors and healthcare workers are the ones handing out the resources and helping everyone. The military, because we need some kind of protection just in case a war would break out over the resources even. And same with police and firefighters. There's still going to be disasters occurring and fires could happen, so we still need protection from that. And electricians, because we still need the light to even go to a hospital and get the vaccine. So a review for 3 major methods of allocation. You could have a random lottery just by selecting anyone, like a drawing even. Social importance of if one person, we need them more to keep going on with life. And triage, need-based, who is going to die or who is sicker or things like that. Some questions that you guys had I found interesting. When someone has the disease in a pandemic, is it ethical to keep it quiet and let the pandemic spread? I think you need to tell, because if you don't tell, it could spread more easily and quicker. And I think you have an obligation to everyone around you. And will there be a black market of those that sell off their resources? I think that there could be a black market, because if some person has an immunity to the disease and they still are up for a vaccination, they might just not tell anyone and they could get the vaccine and then sell it for a profit. But then that could also lead to more crime. Would I give up a vaccine for someone I know? I would give it up for my mom, because she has a lower immune system and I might be able to get through the disease easier than her. Are there any other questions?